The only constant thing any of us can look forward to is change. Went outside and there was like 15-foot flames shooting out of my roof. It was a complete nightmare. I wouldn't wish that experience on my worst enemy.
Welcome to another episode of the ADHD Express. I am your host, Brian Carlson, back after a 6-month hiatus due to some family illnesses. We are back in the studio and ready to record podcasts for you guys. So today I've got a great episode coming for you. It's real, it's raw, it's emotional. Brett Bullock, the founder of the Bullock Agency, they are your source for supplemental insurance. He's going to come on and share his story, you guys, and it is as tragic as it is amazing. He's been through stuff like a house fire, lost loved ones, went through a lot, changed the family legacy, and he is going to share it all with us, you guys. I hope you love this show because I sure loved recording it. Tune in.
Our wonderful brothers, Joe and Daniel.
Hey. Hello.
We've got another very special guest with us today. We got my dear friend, Brett Bullock.
And he is my accident policy provider. Now, we talked about you, Brad. We kind of gave you a little bit of heads up on a couple of our podcasts before this one. We were talking about some things that business owners and young entrepreneurs and even just people in general can do to help benefit their lives. And one of my favorite things is my accident policy from the Bullock Agency.
Well, I appreciate that, Brian. Yes, it's interesting because people know health insurance. They know they need health insurance. But most people don't realize that there are other policies that you can purchase to add an extra layer of protection to your health insurance coverage. And one of those policies is the accident plan. It's a very popular one. I always joke with people, if you've got someone in your family that says, hey, watch me do this, you probably would benefit from an accident plan.
That's how he hooked me in the beginning. I was like, crap, that's me.
And what's interesting is if you say to yourself, I don't have anybody that says that in my family, then you're the one.
Yeah.
That's valid.
So, but it's interesting because health insurance is designed to pay the providers. So if you get sick or you get injured and you go to the doctor or the hospital, your health insurance is going to pay them for their services. That's right. That's why you need a health insurance plan. But the plans that I offer with that extra layer of coverage, they're not designed to pay the provider. They're designed to pay cash directly to you. So I don't want to say that you're benefiting from your own injury, but it's helping you fill in the gaps that your health insurance leaves you. Mm-hmm. An average health insurance policy today, on an individual basis, you've got a $3,000 to $6,000 deductible. That's just normal. On families, you've got a $5,000 to $10,000 deductible. That's considered normal today. Well, what happens when you break an arm? That's a $5,000, $6,000 deal. If you've got a $10,000 deductible, that's all you, buddy. You're paying that $10,000. And so the accident plan will pay you it pays cash directly to you. And in that broken arm scenario, we're going to pay you somewhere, depending on the plan you choose, somewhere in the neighborhood of $1,200 to $3,000 to help offset those deductibles and those costs. So if you're fortunate enough that you can afford health insurance and you accompany that with an accident policy, now you have money to help offset that deductible and copay that you've got to pay out of your pocket. And a lot of people, unfortunately, they don't understand that those types of coverages are available to them. A lot of times you can get them through your employer. They're payroll deducted. So your employer might offer a standalone accident plan in addition to your traditional health insurance coverage they're offering. But I've seen credit unions and banks offer similar type coverage to their depositors and their shareholders. But a lot of people just are unaware that you can even purchase those kinds of coverage. And I always look at it, there's 2 times in your life where you would purchase that kind of plan, if you've got kids, to me, it's almost insane to not have an additional accident plan.
Oh, absolutely.
It makes no sense to me not to have
So let me
that.
tell you guys why you want the accident policy. Okay, so you're not crazy. You're not out saying, hold my beer and watch this. However, so
We will cover that, by the way.
yeah, right. So for example, this is years ago. My daughter was she's 16 now, and she was probably 10 or 11. And we were doing some project, and she was out stomping on bugs on these boards that she'd flip over. Well, lo and behold, there's a nail on one. You remember? I don't know if you remember. Of course,
Yeah, no, I do remember when you filed that claim.
And boom, nail into her foot, right? Immediately, she's like, ah, and she lifts her foot up, and the board comes, so I come running over and pull the board off her foot and scoop her up, run her in the house. Now I've got a lot of some medical training and some different things like that, and I have a first responders bag. So we get inside, and I irrigate that wound, and I dress the wound, and I do all the stuff that you're supposed to do to the wound. And then we go, oh man, tetanus. Like, I don't even know. So we go, okay, well, let's go to Instacare, So we drive down to Instacare. It's, what is it, $85, $95 for an emergency room visit or for an Instacare visit on a Saturday. At least it used to be. Now it's probably more than that.
Well, and that's if you're lucky, if it's open.
If it's open.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we get in there and I tell them what happened, and they're like, well, and they're like, well, gosh, this looks like it's all dry. I'm like, yeah, I kind of did it. And they're like, well, we got to look at, So I'm like, yeah. So they pull it all off. They check it out. They're like, it's clean. And they're like, well, her immunizations are actually going to cover her tetanus. So she's good. So they just rebandage us up and send us home. So then we take and submit our, can I even talk number? I'm not going to get in trouble for saying anything, right?
Oh, no.
Okay.
You're welcome.
So I
to.
submit this claim into my accident policy.
Just don't mention carriers.
Okay, thank you. Yep, perfect. Thank you for the tip. That's what I didn't want to do. So I'm not going to say the carrier. You just go to the Bullock agency, and he will put you with the right people. But so we submit the claim, and the Instacare was like $95, and they paid us like $175 out of that accident policy for the stomped nail foot.
Huh.
So now that was such a great opportunity. It just was, and that's, to me, kind of sums up what the accident policy is about.
Yeah,
I mean,
and that's exactly what it's designed to do, because your health insurance with your high deductible, it wasn't going to cover any of those things. Nope. Some health policies have like a $75, $100 emergency room copay.
Uh-huh.
But even if you have that, that's what the accident plan is designed to do. It gives you that $75, $100, $200.
Yep, to cover those things.
And that's exactly what it does.
And it can get bigger than that. So I've mentioned numerous times BNI. I was actually thinking, I think I'm going to have Cameron Thorne come on here.
Oh, yeah, he'd be good.
Yeah, so he's the director for all of BNI, because I've mentioned BNI so many times. So BNI, again, just a great resource for businesses, especially for maybe not necessarily young, but for starting out and you're wanting to grow, you need some exposure, some education. That's where we got all this. Brett and I met at the BNI chapter, and I know that the accident policy works because we watched 55, 60 other members of the chapter all buy the same policy. And then like once a month, somebody's coming in telling us really kick butt story about how, I was at a family, Bart's thing. I was at a family reunion playing kickball, and he goes to kick the ball and stubs his foot in the ground and shatters his ankle in like 4 billion places.
No.
And like, his insurance covered it, but his accident policy really covered it.
Yeah.
He was so happy about that. It's like, and you start hearing those things, and then you look at what your premiums cost, and you're just like, wait, how come everybody doesn't have this? I don't understand.
Exactly. Yeah.
It's just such a good policy, you guys. So this is just, again, I am an entrepreneur. I own businesses. We do things. So I have, for every employee that I have, we put on an accident policy on our own employees, and we let them be the beneficiary of it. So that way, and if they get hurt, they are not struggling, like part of trying to take care of your people is to let them know that they're appreciated and loved and cared for, right? And by providing this little bit of financial security for them, I mean, we remember when Destry and I rolled the Jeep?
Yep.
So my last inspector, he'd been with me 8 years, and we had this one day, we both had our morning inspections get canceled, like last minute. So we were like, let's go do a safety meeting. So we go to breakfast, and we're talking ladder safety. And then it was like, well, that took like 2 minutes. So now what are we going to do, right? So we're like, well, he's like, you want to take me out in your Jeep? I'm like, yes, I do. So there we go. In the Jeep and company uniforms, the whole 9 yards, we go up wheeling. And that's when I rolled my Jeep like 6 times. It was with Destry and I landed on the roof. He's fractured a vertebrae. His face is cut up, and
That was a bad,
dude,
bad
that was
deal.
a bad. Yeah, and I didn't have.
You guys were lucky to walk away from that.
And it's weird because I'm such a safety guy, and like I didn't have my seatbelt on, and I got thrown down, and I held onto the steering wheel so I didn't get thrown out of the vehicle, and like it literally crushed the vehicle around Destry's seat. So he was totally fine. His side did not get crushed, and my side was. I mean, my steering wheel was bent. My hand was pinned between the roof. I mean, it was absolutely crazy. I had to like rip my hand out. I got scars from where I ripped my hand out. We had to climb and dig in the dirt to get out through the hole. I mean, I got pictures I can show you. It was awful. So I get Destry out, and we're so far up in the middle of nowhere. Like we got no cell reception. Like we, picking our crap up along the road as we're trying to walk out, and we're walking down the road, and there's this big opening in the trees, and my phone rings. And it was a client looking for a home inspection. And I was like, hey, I'll do your inspection, but I need you to come get us or call my wife or something because this just happened. And it was this woman, Claudia Mendez. I got to send her one of these videos and links so she can follow up on this. She shows up in this little sleek black luxury car, black on black leather, like 20-inch rims on blade tires up Providence Canyon. I felt so, we were covered in dirt and blood. We had my dog with us, and thank God he jumped out of the window before the rollover, so he didn't get hurt. But like, yeah, anyway, so Destry has this fractured vertebrae, and it was one of those things. It's like, we're so far off road, you can't really say automotive. Like, yeah, we're in a company vehicle because it was the vinyl wrapped Jeep, and like kind of workers' comp, but kind of not. Like, it was all really weird. So I paid for his first doctor visit, and then we submitted the rest through the accident policy, and through all of his treatments, he ended up, we didn't have to pay another penny out of pocket. It covered everything. I don't know if you knew that part of that or not.
Well, I mean, that doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
That's exactly what the plan's designed to do. But the key thing that I want to point out there is it covers you on or off the job.
Yeah.
So it wouldn't matter. It wouldn't matter if you considered that a workman's comp claim or because you know, it was during business hours. You guys were out on in
uniform,
kind of a business outing. Yeah, outing. You know, for your company, and yes, it's going to cover you on or off the job. So that's a great story. I mean, shouldn't happen, Brian. It shouldn't happen.
We should link a photo of the Jeep at this point here so that people can be like, whoa, wait a minute.
Yeah.
Gotta throw it in the folder.
Yep. Okay. I will do that.
So I have a question. What got you into this line of work?
So that's a great question. I was nearing my graduation. It took me like 6 years to get through college. You know, just that typical can't afford it, struggling couple, the whole 9 yards. And my family was very, they basically, you can't succeed in life if you don't have a college degree. That's what was pounded into my upbringing. Which incidentally, I don't think any of my sisters have a college degree.
Oh, really?
But I actually, and when I got married, my dad stopped subsidizing us, if you will, for tuition and things. So it became hard to get through school. As I was nearing my end of my senior year, my dad, who owned a restaurant franchise, he created a kind of like a Marie Callender's, a pie shop. It was called Plush Pippin. And my whole plan out of school was to go manage one of his stores. I grew up in the restaurant business. I worked for him all of my life, basically. I never had a job interview. I never had to do any of that.
I didn't know that.
My dad would actually, unfortunately, displace people when he knew his kids were coming back from college or whatever, so that we had a space.
Yep.
So it was kind of interesting because I never had to go out looking for a job. I always had one available to me. I loved the restaurant business. I thought that's what I was going to do the rest of my life. Sure. And like I said, as I got closer to graduating, my dad asked me what I was going to do. And I said, I'm going to work for you. I'm going to come and manage a store. And he says, yeah, about that. we just sold the family business to Nabisco.
Oh wow.
Nabisco bought them out. And so it's kind of like the Beverly Hillbillies. They became instant millionaires. My sisters all dropped out of school, moved home. I was married, so I couldn't move home. So it was kind of interesting, and it took me for a loop because I had no idea what I was going to do. At that same time frame, we were expecting our first child, and so I was kind of panicked, to be honest with you. Had no idea what I was going to do. I started putting out my resume, and my resume is about this big, and all I'd done is the restaurant business. The best paying job I was going to get after graduating was, I was told that I could start with, I think it was Zions Bank, and they were going to start me out as a teller.
Oh, wow.
With a college degree.
Right.
Okay. I was going to start out as a teller, and if I went back to school and got my MBA, then maybe I could hope to be vice president one day of a branch or whatever. I thought, this doesn't sound like what I expected when I had a college degree.
Yeah.
And so anyway, I decided I think I'm going to go to law school.
Okay.
And because I need to make at least 50 grand a year, I don't know how to do that unless you own a business or a doctor or a lawyer. And I wasn't smart enough to be a doctor, and probably barely smart enough to be a lawyer. But I did fairly well on the LSAT, got accepted into a couple of law schools. And because it had taken me so long to get through college, I had a couple of friends who were graduating from law school, one in the top 10% of his class and one in the bottom 10% of his class. The one in the bottom was going to make more money painting houses than practicing law. And the one at the top 10% of his class had gotten an internship in New York, going to require 80 hours a week.
Mm-hmm.
And he would start at $85,000 a year. And I thought, I know I'm not smart enough to be in the top 10% of my class. If I'm anywhere near the bottom 10%, I might as well not go to law school.
Well, you could always go into politics.
It just didn't make sense.
That's horrible.
I didn't even think about that. I had no idea how much politicians actually make.
Right.
So,
Especially the crooked ones, man.
yeah, exactly, the crooked ones. So I decided, I'm not going to go to law school. But in the process of getting accepted to law school, I had a relationship with a gentleman who was a bigwig with an insurance company based out of Salt Lake City, and they specialized in life insurance.
Okay.
And so when I went to get into law school, I asked him for a letter of recommendation, which he gave me.
Okay.
But at the time, and I didn't think anything of it, he says, "Why do you want to be a lawyer?" And I said, "Honestly, I don't know. I just want to make 50 grand a year." And he said at the time, he said, I have new agents that have been with me for a couple of years now. They're making over 6 figures. I said, "What?
Yeah.
Selling life insurance? No.
Yeah.
Nobody makes money selling life insurance." And so anyway, when I decided, when that $10,000 first quarter commission, or not commission, now I lost my train of thought.
You're talking about him.
Tuition.
Yeah.
Tuition payment. That $10,000 tuition payment was due. I was like, yeah, no, I'm not going to do, I'm not going to go into debt, take out loans to go to law school.
Right.
So I decided I was going to pursue a career in the insurance industry. And so I took their aptitude test. I scored high on it. They offered me, I think it was $2,000 a month base pay to start with them, which nobody does that.
Yeah.
And I didn't realize that was what they called an advance on commissions. So if I didn't perform, I would owe that back.
Yeah.
But they didn't
Yeah.
tell me that. So I had to learn, I kind of had to learn what that meant. But because my wife, she's an intensive care nurse at the time. She had graduated just before we got married, got her RN degree, and she worked for the VA hospital. So she worked with all the heart transplant patients.
Dang.
Um,
I didn't know that either.
Yeah, so she
His wife's
and they
rad.
worked in conjunction with University of Utah. They had one of the best heart transplant teams in the country at that time. And so that's what she was doing. And she was making a pretty good income. And so I thought to myself, well, if I'm going to have $2,000 a month with her income, we should probably invest in a home. We should probably buy a house. At the time, this will tell you how old I am. Sandy, Utah was the new up and coming area where all the new builds were coming, the new neighborhoods. And so I just drove out there, and my wife was at work doing a night shift, and I had some time on my hands. So there was this couple walking in this new neighborhood. It's unlike it. I don't have the personality to just go out and start a conversation with people. I kind of do now because because of the business I'm in. But at the time, I wasn't like that at all. But there was this cute young couple walking their young kids, and I just pulled over in my car and got out and introduced myself. Started talking to him about the neighborhood, the schools, churches, in the area, and if they liked it out there. And ironically, he asked me what I was going to do for a living, or what I did for a living. And I said, I just passed my insurance exam, and I'm going to sell life insurance. Do you need any? And he just smiled and he said, well, I'm a recruiter for an insurance carrier, and we're having a luncheon or a breakfast tomorrow. Are you down for free food? And let me tell you what we do. Sure. Why not?
Yeah.
So I went home kind of excited, told my wife, Heidi, and she was a little leery about it, but went down to Salt Lake. It was at the Red Lion, and had breakfast with them. And at the time, we had just had our first baby, all around that same time frame. He was born premature. He was born at 28 weeks. Scary situation. My wife got toxemia, and it's a very serious disease that's caused by the pregnancy. And when we discovered that she had a serious problem, I took her to the emergency room, and literally they wheeled her into surgery to take the baby, because that's the only way they can stop the progression of this disease, or otherwise they're both going to pass away. The only cure is to take the baby. And so here I am, I'm 25 years old, in my senior year, just got my insurance license, and a doctor pulls me out into the hallway and says, you need to know that there's a 50% chance that you will not go home with your child or your wife. You need to know that.
Wow.
And talk about being scared.
Dude.
So I still get emotional about it, obviously, but they wheeled her in for an emergency C-section. And as they did the surgery and they pulled my little guy out, I don't know if you know what a 28-week-old baby looks like, but they look like a little old man. And he was 18 inches long. He weighed, I think, 3 pounds. And his whole little hand couldn't squeeze my pinky. It couldn't even go around my pinky. He had some setbacks. He had complications. It was up and down. My wife had to be in a dark room for 3 days recovering from the C-section, because it affects her blood pressure, and it was off the charts. But during that process, so she didn't even get to see him for the first 3 days. She just had a little Polaroid that the doctors took, and I sat it next to her bed. But I was able to go in and hold him and kind of bond with him and things like that. Long story short, he's 37. He'll be 37 next month. No complications. He did great. He pulled through. So because of that experience, though, being fresh on my mind. Now, let me preface this with, she worked for the VA hospital. She had 100% coverage health insurance plan. 100%. Those don't exist today.
Sure. Wow.
Yeah.
So it's 100%, no deductible, no copays.
Wow.
Okay. So I'm thinking, I'm thinking in my mind, when the doctors are asking me, hey, there's this new procedure, or we can try this, or we can do this, I wasn't thinking costs. I was just like, if it's going to save my little boy, do whatever you need to do to save my little boy. And when everything was said and done, the bill was about $250,000. In today's dollars, that's well over $1 million.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And I wasn't worried because I had 100% coverage, no deductible.
Wow.
But when everything was said and done, we got the initial bill. We owed $5,000 out of pocket. Now, remember, I'm a student.
Yep.
My wife's working full time. It might as well have been $1 million because
Right. The odds.
I didn't have $5,000.
Yeah.
So in order to pay that off, I dropped out of my last quarter of school, and I actually went door to door selling cable television packages. And within about 5 or 6 months, I was able to pay off that $5,000 bill. But I couldn't understand why I had the bill in the first place when I had 100% coverage and no deductible. And there was a little clause in my policy that referred to, we pay 100% of usual and customary charges. Well, every time they did something extra, that's not usual and customary charges. So I'm paying the extras. Okay. And there was no way around it. That's how the carrier manipulates, what you are going to pay. And of course, at that time, I didn't understand insurance. I didn't understand how it worked. Anyway, cutting back to that breakfast presentation, they introduced what was called an intensive care policy. And that policy basically paid a lump sum or a X amount of dollars per day that an individual's in the ICU unit. And NICU counts. So my little guy was in there for well over a month. I started adding up what this policy would have paid me, and was well over $16,000 that I could have added to my 100% health insurance coverage. And the cost for the plan for my entire family was $16 a month.
Wow.
So when he was done with his presentation, I was like, not only will I buy this plan, I could sell this plan all day long
Yeah.
to people. And I could sell it to people who were already pregnant and expecting. I was like, this is a miracle policy.
Yeah.
I'm doing this. Now, you can imagine the commission on a $16 policy, right?
Yeah.
I wasn't thinking that. I was thinking, I'm going to help people
Yep.
who need help because they have no idea what they're up against if they had a sick or premature baby. So that's how I got into this business. That's how the bulk agency was created. I walked away from $2,000 a month with this life insurance company. The guy that brought me in the business was not happy with me. They had wined and dined us and spent all kinds of time and effort and money to get us into the business. Let me go back just a step. It was hard. This is not an easy business to get in. It's easy to get into. It's hard to stay in this business and actually help enough people to where you can make enough money to support yourself, support your family. So my dad, on one of his trips after he sold to Nabisco, he actually worked for Nabisco. And his whole job, what a cush job. They had a deal with Albertson's Bakery at the time and Smith's and some of the others where they baked. So before they started having their own bakery, they would bake my dad's pies. and they would sell them as if they were theirs. Okay. Nabisco had set up this deal with them. So my dad would fly around all over the country making sure the pies were baked right. That was his job. So he was in Salt Lake at the time where we were living, and he said, "Hey, I'm going to be in Salt Lake checking out some stores. Let me take you to dinner." So he stopped by. We went out to dinner, and he said, "So now that I've sold the family business and you're about to graduate, what are you going to do with your life?" And before I had a chance to say anything, he said, "There's really only two occupations that I just can't stand to deal with. These people." The first thing he said, lawyers. The second thing he said,
Life insurance.
insurance agents.
Yeah.
And I was like, wow. What? You just burst my bubble. Here's the two options I was thinking of. And bam, my dad's going to hate me no matter what I do. He's going to hate having to deal with me. And so I told him, I said, "Well, I've been accepted to law school, but I think I'm going to go in the insurance industry."
Boy.
He just kind of went silent, and he said, "Well, that can be a good career choice. Do you think you can? Do you think you're going to be able to make it?" And then, so I've got that to look forward to with my career. And then Heidi's parents, my wife's parents, when they found out what I was going to do, her dad set me aside and he said, "There's this new company that just came into Utah. I don't know if you even remember them. It was like Grand Central. They were purchased by Fred Meyer later on, but they were like a supermarket Smith store, kind of like the post or the pre Walmart, before Walmart came on the scene, or Kmart. But Grand Central, he's like, "I know somebody down there. I'm pretty sure I could get you an entry level position, and then you could, with your degree, you can work your way up into the company and have some security." And I said, "Well, I really want to try this insurance thing." He was not happy with my decision. But I luckily, with the support of my wife, because she basically said, I know your talents, I know your abilities, and if you set your mind to something, I know you're going to be able to do this. And so I went to work with this carrier, this guy that recruited me off the street. And it was a hard sell to my wife because this guy that hired me was, I think he was 20 years old. I was 25 at the time. So he was younger than me, had only been with the company for a couple of years, but he was what they call a state manager. He was over the entire state of Utah. He had this basement office. His desk was a card table and folding chairs. And my wife walked into his office and was like, "Oh, hell no. They don't make any money. This isn't happening." And because the life insurance company in Salt Lake was like walking into a fancy lawyer's office, they had wood paneling, the whole 9 yards.
Sure, luxurious stuff. Yeah.
Beautiful furniture. It was all luxury. They gave me a leather portfolio just for thinking about joining their company. I used that the first couple of years in my own business, but it was, and they took us out to really expensive, fancy restaurants. So going from that to this, my wife was super concerned, but I said, "Just give me 6 months. Let's see what we can do in 6 months." And 6 months, we did okay. We weren't setting any records by any means. In fact, we went to a company picnic, and all these guys were winning these awards, going across stage, winning these awards. And she seriously looked at me and she said, "You have more talent in your pinky than any of these people that are getting awards. Why aren't you getting awards? And I was like, wow, that's a reality check.
Yeah.
Yeah. And she pretty much challenged me right there. And so what was funny is the next year at that same company picnic, guess who was getting all the awards? I just needed that motivation and that trust.
Dude, right? Sometimes having a good woman behind you, man.
Yeah.
Like,
I
dang.
mean, she got me there
Yeah.
because the first thing she'd ask when I'd walk through the door, did you make any sales today? No, but I got all this going on and I did this. And she's like, what do you got to do? What's the most productive thing you can do to make a sale tomorrow? And that's how I woke up every morning. What's the most productive thing I can do to make a sale today? And not just the sell, but what's the most important thing I could do to help people today?
Right.
How can I help somebody be better off than they are now without meeting me? And so that's really what became the mantra of our business. The irony is, fast forward 2 years, I've gotten so comfortable in my career that I was really working. I would just work leads 3 nights a week, and I would make more money than in one night than my wife would make in a 12-hour shift working for the VA hospital as a intensive care nurse.
Wow.
And so I attended all the family parties when she couldn't. I was at the Super Bowl parties where she was working. She was working Christmas Eve or Christmas. I was at the family functions. And so she came home one day and she said, I just want you to know that, and while she's doing this, she's handing me the checkbook because she was handling all the finances. She hands me the checkbook and she says, I want you to know that I quit my job today. I put you through school. I'm tired of not being able to go to family parties. I'm tired of not being able to be there for my kids to watch them grow up. You're taking them to school. You're doing everything because you're only working 3 nights a week. So you need to go full time. I put you through school. It's now your turn to take over the bills and support the family. I was like, I'm going to have to get serious about this. So, that was the best thing that ever happened. I didn't know about Dave Ramsey at the time. I don't even know if Dave Ramsey was around back then.
Yeah, probably not.
But what I started doing is when I would have kind of a windfall and I'd make more commission than I thought I'd make that month, I just started putting envelopes and I would put checks in them. I didn't put cash like Dave recommends, but I'd actually write the check out from my checking account, deduct it from my balance, and I'd put it in the envelopes, car payment, rent, groceries, whatever. And eventually I got a month ahead of my bills and was able to maintain that the entire time. But here's the irony. Almost a year later, my wife comes home one day and she says, surprise, I got my insurance license today. And
she was starting to.
And she's like, if you can do this, I can do better.
Oh!
So we started working together, and that's really how the Bullock Agency started. She's the CEO of the company, and she's done a fantastic job. We were with one carrier for almost 28 years.
Wow.
And we were the leading, they called them regional managers. That without getting in the weeds, we led the entire state for years and years and years, the entire state of Utah, with this little ragtag group here in Logan, Utah. Logan would outproduce Salt Lake, Ogden, Provo, wherever they were established, we would do twice as much in production and sales is what they were doing. So we had a great career. We helped a lot of people. We help a lot of people. We literally built an agency here, and we have thousands of policyholders. And it's great to see, Brian, when you tell your stories, I'm so glad that you took the opportunity to actually look at it and say, this makes sense to me. Why wouldn't I do this? And then when I hear your stories, I don't know if you remember, there was a gentleman in our B&I group, Rescue One, and he had started a company, and he did videos that you can see still online on my website.
Mine too.
And he did those videos for us. And in the process, his employees were listening to the stories from my clients. And at the end, they said to the owner of the company, you need to offer this to us. We want this. We want this coverage. And so he bought it for his employees. And I mean, not only did he buy the accident plan, but he bought the cancer plan, he bought the critical illness plan, the accident plan for his employees. And it wasn't 3 months later, the owner of the company was diagnosed with thyroid cancer.
Oh,
I mean, he was in his 20s.
Yep. Young man.
And people don't realize that cancer is no respecter of age, ethnicity. It doesn't matter. If it's in the cards, it's going to happen. And the only thing you can do to prepare yourself is to have that extra layer of coverage. Yep. And so fortunately, he bought it for himself, and he'll be the first one to tell you that it saved him. He had a high deductible health insurance plan. Yep. And what a lot of people don't realize is how health insurance works. Just because you meet your deductible in that year, most deductibles renew January 1.
yeah.
So if you're diagnosed with cancer in October, you're paying your full deductible. And if you're still getting treatments for cancer in January, you just paid it again. And if it's 10 grand, that means within a 3-6 month period, you just shelled out 20 grand.
Right.
If you don't have something to help you, it's my son explains it now. Shane's actually in the business now. Yep. And Kyle's kind of getting into it. When they were 18, I kind of forced them to get their insurance license and keep it, even just in case, and Shane's into computers. He's really smart. He just gravitated to computers and IT. He just loves that stuff. So he went to work for a company in Vegas, and he was with them for about 8 months, and then COVID hit. And in Vegas, everything shut down.
Yeah.
So they lay him off, and he calls me up, and he's like, "Dad, I see your lifestyle, and I see how much time you actually have to put in to the sales process." Meaning, I work Monday through Friday, 9 to 5. But if there's an event I want to go to, I can do it. So he likes that lifestyle because he was putting in 60, 70 hours a week with his IT company. And he kind of found this new freedom when COVID hit, and he kind of liked it. And he said, "I think I want to get back in the insurance business with you." And so he learned everything on his own. He didn't get much help from his old man. And, but he's doing really well. He's now living in St. George. And we started an office down there. We actually have offices. I don't know if you knew this, Brian, but we've grown to 55 agents.
Wow. Sorry. I'll fix that this weekend, I promise.
We've grown to 55 agents, and we actually have 6 offices.
Oh, wow.
Oh, wow.
So our main office is here in Logan.
Yeah.
But we have an office in Gillette, Wyoming,
Okay.
Casper, Wyoming, Rock Springs, Wyoming, Lyman, Wyoming, and St. George and Logan.
Wow.
So
how'd Wyoming kind of come into the picture?
I have a couple of agents that, well, I was actually born in Rawlins, Wyoming, if you can believe that or
Okay.
not. But the state of Wyoming is very underserved by insurance professionals. And my agency has more licensed agents in Wyoming than I think the whole town of Casper or the whole town of Gillette. I wouldn't say the state, but my agency has a bigger presence in Wyoming than the locals,
Oh, wow.
the local agents.
Wow.
And we've literally helped hundreds and hundreds of Wyomingans, if you will, with their insurance needs. And one of the reasons that we went into Wyoming was United Healthcare was coming in with we do a lot with Medicare now, Medicare Advantage plans. And they just came in with a brand new Medicare Advantage plan that had never been available before. So people who had Medicare supplements are paying $300, $400, $500 a month for their coverage. We now could go in and offer them an alternative Medicare Advantage plan that, in some cases, zero premium,
Oh, wow.
Wow.
or very low premium
Amazing.
cost, and it includes their prescription card. So we were one of the first to kind of pioneer to go in there and help people understand the differences between a Medicare supplement and Medicare Advantage plan. But I mean, our company has, you asked me, do I read books? What's my favorite book? Earlier. And my favorite book is Who Moved My Cheese?
Ah, solid book right there.
Okay.
Referenced that
by-
book before, I think.
Yeah, we talked about it 2 podcasts ago.
Okay.
It's a solid book and so many good lessons.
Well, I wish I'd had known about it before all these changes, because it's not just for business. It teaches you how to deal with change. And as I mentioned, in my opinion, the only constant thing any of us can look forward to is change.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
when you're an insurance agent and in the insurance industry, everything changes constantly. There are rules, regulations. It's just, sometimes it can be just an absolute nightmare. And you could wake up one day thinking your life is great, you're making good living, and then the government decides to put in a new law that just shut down your entire
Yeah.
industry. And
We did a contract firefighting, like wildland firefighting contracting.
wow.
And we did it, and each of those trucks made $2,500 a day.
$5,000 a day.
Yeah, we had 2 trucks, and it made 10. Yeah, that's right. And
That sounds like a lucrative business.
Yeah.
for 3 months of work, these guys would have it so that we
$500,000.
$6 million, not 6 million, 6-figure check
Uh-huh.
for 3 months of work, and then the rest of the year was going, and it worked every single year because it's government contract, guaranteed money. And then in 2008, Obama made it so that you could only have it so government trucks could work on it. And
Yeah, the government trucks
pretty much-
No
first.
private. Wow.
And it shut us down instantly like that.
Yeah. And that's why I love this book, because I read it once a year just to kind of refresh my memory. It's just a simple little metaphor. It talks about a maze, and in this maze there's cheese stations, and there's 2 little people that live in this maze, him and Ha, and then you got 2 mice that also live in this maze, and Sniff and Scurry. And it's all about how the humans, the little people, they get comfortable sitting in this cheese house. All the cheese in the world that they ever need is right there, but it runs out.
Yeah.
Now what are they going to do? Well, the mice, they take off. They're going to go find more cheese, and the 2 humans sit there waiting for the cheese to reappear. And it doesn't. And so finally, one of them takes off into the maze looking for new cheese, while the other one is pretty much just resided to starve to death. And it just kind of goes into that, but it just talks about, and it's a great metaphor for your personal life.
Yeah.
It's a great metaphor for your business life. Because if you can't, and Brian, we were discussing this earlier, if you can't adapt, you're going to die.
Yeah.
So in the insurance world, if you can't adapt to the new rules and regulations, you're out of business.
Yeah.
And that's another thing I don't think people understand, how well educated insurance agents have to be to do what we do.
Yeah.
It's
There's a lot.
you know, I think it's of the old days of the life insurance, working out of the guy working out of his car, wearing a goofy tie and kind of a clown suit, knocking on your door, you know, trying to sell you life insurance. That's the industry has changed. That is not how it's done. And there's so many different products available and so many different lines of coverage that you really need to have an insurance professional on your side. You know, I tell people you need a great CPA that knows what they're doing.
Yeah.
Because they'll save you thousands of dollars in taxes.
Tons of time.
In tons of time. And, you know, I pay my CPA probably $1,500 a year. That's totally worth it to me, because he saves me tens of thousands of dollars in tax exempt things. You need an insurance professional that knows what they're doing. Now, I consider myself, you know, well-versed in the health and life industry. But when it comes to property and casualty, I don't do that. So if you need car insurance, homeowners insurance, I can recommend some great people, but that's not my forte.
Yeah.
You need a professional in those areas. You know, you need great physicians that you trust. There are certain people, you need a great home inspector.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I wasn't going to let anybody inspect my home in St. George.
Appreciate that.
I wanted you to come down there. I was willing to put you up in a hotel and spend as much time as you needed, because I trust your work. You're a professional.
Appreciate that.
There's nobody else out there that I would trust.
I've had a lot of
homes.
folks do that. I had some folks, actually we, Utah State, we lost a couple of basketball coaches. They went down to the U, and the coach was like, "Hey, you got to come down and inspect these 3 houses for me and my assistants." And I was really grateful. You know, I recently had some guys fly me to Oklahoma City to look at a 80 unit apartment complex for them.
Good for you.
So
That's awesome.
yeah.
Kyle's now looking for a home.
Okay.
And that was the first thing.
Yeah.
He came close to making an offer on one. And I said, well, you got to include in your offer home inspection,
Yeah.
not from the seller. You're going to pay your own home inspection and have that done before you move forward with the purchase.
Yeah.
So he's got you on speed dial as well.
Yeah.
So
Cool. Good excuse to go to St. George. I love St. George. I love Sand Hollow.
we just spent 3 weeks down there in April. And then I come back up here.
And no,
This
Snowy
whole week,
again.
oh my gosh.
I've been down there like 3 times this year already, and I'm just like,
I think Logan's the only part of the world where you can experience winter, fall, spring, summer, all in one day.
Yeah, literally.
in a day.
Yeah.
All in one day.
I was joking. I wanted to stand outside the past few days with my phone, and then just right when it starts raining, start recording, so that by the end of the 15-second video, it'll change 3 seasons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like, I don't know, I was doing a home inspection the other day, and like, actually it's been all this week. It's like, my home inspections are inside and outside. And so every time I step outside, it immediately starts raining, sleeting, or snowing. And then as soon as I go inside, the sun's out. Like, it's just, and I'm like, oh, I'll run back out there, and then boom, rain. Like, what in the world?
Yeah.
But like, so we're doing a walkthrough with these clients, and it's snowing on us, and yet the sun is like, so there's like a cloud that like the line is right above us, and so the sun is glaring in your face, and yet you're still getting hit with snow and rain. It's just like, okay, Utah, like, if I literally run across the street, I'm out of the storm.
Literally, yeah.
Literally. That's Utah.
Yeah.
Or that's Logan, I should say, because it's not all of Utah. It's kind of Cache Valley.
Yeah, I think it's kind of Cache Valley.
Yeah.
I was going to say too, on the insurance professional side. So the tragedies in my life or the hardships in my life have led me. So when you asked the question, how'd you get in this business? It was solely because of my experience with my premature birth.
And it's amazing to me that like experiences like that denoting how you know and how you understand something completely differently, and that's why you are way more valuable than some Joe Schmo.
Yep.
Right. And so it's the same with the home inspection. You've done enough home inspections to build a knowledge base that no one else has.
Well, not only that, it's more of like, well, mine was building as well because I've built houses. So like started out building houses and then did the inspection. So it's a good kind of a.
Well, you have a good background. So my personal experience with my son,
Yeah, that's your background.
and his premature birth, I saw what 100% coverage really meant, and it wasn't what people think. And so they still, even in that situation, I still needed added coverage, an extra layer, because if I'd have got paid $16,000, I wouldn't have had to drop out of school, and I would have just paid the $5,000 bill, had money left over,
Okay.
and I would have been fine. But no, I had to drop out of school. Now, I went back and got my degree, but I haven't even opened it. It's still sitting in a FedEx envelope.
Really?
I've just hauled it around for years and years and years because in the line of work that I chose, you don't need a college degree. You need to be 18 years old. You don't even need a high school diploma.
If you could pass the Series 6 and 63 in life and health, right?
If you can pass the insurance exam, you're in. And maybe that's why people don't give the industry a lot of credibility, because you could be a high school dropout. In fact, one of the most successful agents that I had the privilege of knowing, he did not have a high school diploma. He got in the business shortly after me and did extremely well. He got to the point where he bought his own insurance company before he was 30.
Wow.
Okay. And he built this he just built this empire. And I remember when he bought a home in Immigration Canyon with all the Richie Riches, snobby people. And he was at a neighborhood Christmas party. And all the men were talking, and they were all talking about, well, where'd you go to college? Where'd you get your degree? Harvard, Oxford, all these prestigious universities. And he was getting a little nervous because it was coming around to his turn to say where he went to college. And he says, Brett, the only thing that I could think of when it came to me, I blurted out, I don't have a high school diploma, but I have my own personal jet.
Right.
And I was like, I think that was okay.
A fair point.
That's a fair point. Don't let him, But then you look at, I don't think Bill Gates had a college degree, or
Most of them.
Steve Jobs. And they eventually, so this gentleman I'm talking about, it really became a sore spot for him. So he does have a degree from Oxford now, because basically he got to the point financially where he could buy his time back. And that's what he decided to do, was to he got accepted into Oxford, and now he has all these fancy diplomas and initials behind his name. But
he didn't need that. That's interesting.
No.
Yeah.
He didn't need it. It's just, and it's kind of like, you guys familiar with Zig Ziglar?
Yeah.
One of my favorite sayings from him was, if you help enough people get what they need or they want, you eventually can't help but get what you want.
Yeah.
And that's really what he did.
Yeah.
He was just phenomenal at helping people understand what they needed in the insurance world. But and you need an insurance professional that's not afraid to say, no, this product's not right for you.
Right.
And I'll give you an example. I respect him immensely. Bruce Jones.
Oh yeah, Bruce. Yeah.
Bruce,
Very well.
Farm Bureau agent. So I knew Bruce when we built our dream house, and I thought I was being really smart to only insure my home, my dream home, for what I owed the bank. Okay. Because the bank only requires you to have enough homeowners insurance.
What's really going to happen to your new home?
To pay off the loan, right? So Bruce comes out to my house and he's taking pictures. He's walking around my home and he's like, how much do you want me to insure this for? And I said, what I owed on my house. And he looked at me. He looked at my house. He looked at me again and he said, you need to find another agent. I said, what? You're a good friend of mine. Why would I go to another agent? He said, Brett, I'm not going to insure this home for what you owe the bank. Because if this home, and this is exactly what he said, if this home burns down, your loan's paid for. But now what? You're going to have to pay money to tear down what's left, have it removed, and then start all over again. And you have no equity. You have
nothing. Yeah.
Now you're gonna borrow from the bank the full cost of this home.
Wow.
And I was like, yeah, but homeowners insurance is so expensive. I don't. Okay, fine. What's it going to cost me to fully insure the home? It was $200 a year more than what I was just going to insure it for. Okay. And if I didn't have an insurance professional brave enough, who was a personal friend of mine, to say, you know what, if that's your choice, it's your choice. You can do that. But if you're going to make a stupid choice, I am not going to be the agent that signed you up for that.
That's cool.
And guess what, guys? It burnt down 2 years later.
Dang.
Got a fire in my chimney chase. You just went through that experience.
His burned down though. Mine I caught mine. Thank God. Honestly, like when it happened, I was just thinking of his house, you guys. So for those of you who don't know, if you're following this still on this channel, I had a little chimney. My chimney got disconnected and started a little mini fire in the chimney chase. And fortunately, I was home and was able to take a few actions to stop it.
Yeah, we were not that fortunate.
Nope.
Yeah.
It was in an attic that we couldn't see. And
Didn't neighbors
apparently,
call you and like, hey,
yeah, the neighbors are like, hey, what are you barbecuing up there? It's like, we're not barbecuing. Went outside and there was like 15-foot flames shooting out of my roof. And and then all panic sets in. And it's just, it was a complete nightmare. I wouldn't wish that experience on my worst enemy. It's just, it was horrible experience. But the thing that I remember is Bruce was out there. So it burned down on a Sunday night and my insurance agent was out there at 7:00 in the morning handing me a check to go buy incidentals. And I'm like, what's this for? And it was like $2,000. He's like, it's for food, clothing, whatever you need it for. And I smiled at him and I said, okay, now let me get this straight. You're handing me a $2,000 check. I get, that's nice of you, but my deductible's $2,500. So aren't I just going to give this back to you? And he's like, that's not how it works. They'll do the deductible after everything's said and done. But this is just to get you a good start. Because we had to move in with her parents who lived across the pasture. We had nothing. And I remember we went to Macy's and we had to buy salt, pepper, ketchup, just baking stuff, all the things. We both literally were standing in the aisle in tears saying, I can't believe we have to start all over, with all these. And it wasn't cheap.
No.
Buying all that stuff again.
Right.
You replace it as you need it.
Right. But filling your spice drawer, that's a lot
to
of
do
money.
it all.
Yeah.
And I remember too, they gave me another check for like $1,500 because they wanted us to itemize all, because when your house burns down, there's no electricity. So your fridges are out, your freezers are out. You lose all the food that was in there. and you have to itemize it
Oh.
so that you can get reimbursed from the insurance carrier.
I didn't even think about that. Like I buy a beef.
Oh yeah, if we had a quarter of a cow in there, you know, we had to itemize it per steaks and hamburger and take pictures if you could. It's just amazing the claims process that goes through there. But because of Bruce's recommendation,
Yeah.
financially, we were good.
Yeah. That makes a big
Do
difference.
you know what I mean? They even paid us guys $4,500 a month for rent. Now we were living with Heidi's parents. We weren't paying rent till they found out I was getting $4,500.
Yeah.
we were living the good life, but you know, I still had to pay my mortgage.
Yeah.
And that helped tremendously
Sure.
because now I'm paying for a temporary place to live while they're rebuilding our home. And again, insurance professionals, people may not think we're professional, but we really are. You really need to listen to the advice of an insurance professional. Not someone's just trying to sell you something, but if you get an established person that's been in this business, I think I'm going on 38 years.
Mm-hmm.
I think Heidi and I are going on 39 years of marriage.
Wow.
And, but if you get an insurance professional, that's the point I hope people get from this podcast is you need professionals in your life to help you make good decisions, because if you're all out there on your own, you're going to make some wrong.
choices.
I would have made a bad choice.
If it wasn't for Bruce.
And, you know, all the little things, all the little lemons that life has given me, and then I turned that into a business. I turned that experience into a separate business called Top Dog Fire Protection. Because if we'd have had this simple little a warning system in our attic, we would have known hours before that we had a problem.
Could have stopped it beforehand.
And could have probably saved hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of damage if we'd have had that.
And emotional distress.
That claim, I don't know if it still remains the biggest claim in Cache Valley for Farm Bureau, but it was over $1 million for the cost to tear down what remained and to build it back up. It was $1 million. Wow. Yeah. In fact, if I would talk to Farm Bureau agents around, they would say, "Oh, you're the bullock home. You're the bullock claim, the famous bullock claim." And that's all because Bruce Jones was a professional and said, "I'm not going to insure you if you don't." And $200 more, guys. It just.
Yeah. Well, and this, we actually got to kind of get it wrapping up here. We're about running out of time.
Okay.
No, so that's, and
I didn't know I could talk but I am in sales.
Yeah, it's good. That was honestly great. So like part of the thing on the podcast, like sometimes we just have fun, but we really want to give people some valuable insight. And today I hope we gave you guys some valuable insight as far as different insurance options and the benefits and the qualities of having a good agent, a good knowledgeable agent. So I've mentioned this many, many times, most of my things, like it's all about your network. It's all about the people around you. And so you guys have got to have great people. So for those of you who don't already know Brett Bullock, now you know him. Call the Bullock Agency. Let's get you guys taken care of on some supplemental insurance. If you guys found this podcast helpful and beneficial, please give us a like, a follow, subscribe. Give us a comment about your own experience with your accident policies, or maybe an experience that you wished you had the accident policy. And we'll make sure we have links to Brett's website in the comments.
Check the description.
Okay, and then merch coming soon, hopefully, by this time this is released. Have some ADHD t-shirts and stuff, and a Bullock Agency t-shirt maybe.
Great. I can do that.
Okay, we'll put all that stuff on there. Brett, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, have a good night.
Adios.